Flying babies fly away, crying babies get devoured. Little bones go crunch, 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 while the wolves they munch, munch, munch. Flying babies fly away, crying babies get devoured. Little bones go crunch, 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 while the wolves they munch, munch, munch. Flying babies fly away, crying babies get devoured. Little bones go munch, crunch, crunch, while the wolves they munch, munch, munch. So, an explanation.
What's the story behind that?
Both of my kids were very colicky. And if you think about nursery rhymes and the things you sing to babies, so you think of Rockabye Baby, right?
Yeah.
Baby's up in a treetop, the branch breaks, the whole thing comes crashing down, everybody dies. It's terrible. And so both of my kids were colicky. And we're talking, 3 o'clock in the morning, bouncing somebody on a yoga ball, trying really hard to sort of contain your thoughts and how tired you are. And so this is something that I began repeating over and over again in as calm and soothing a way as I could. Eventually, young Henry would fall asleep, and it was all good. And it gave me an enormous amount of pleasure to know that no one was falling out of a branch. No one got eaten. No one got eaten. And
the relevance.
In view of Heather's current condition, I thought it would be a really great thing for her to take home. And
You're still a ways away, right?
5 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's still a ways away.
Yep.
Yeah.
That would be a first on the show. If that were to happen, that'd be a first. But welcome back, Chris.
Yeah, it's nice to be here.
Good
Thank
to
you very
have
much.
Back.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. I mean, I mentioned that I had there, and you actually brought me a little. I love it. It's great. It's amazing. I'm going to enjoy it. It won't stay here. This one's going to go home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally.
Whatever you want to do with it.
I
100%.
It's great. It looks great. Thank you so much. You brought a couple of friends now.
I did.
All right. So we have Sarah right across from me, and we have Heather on the other end there. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves and your official title?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. My name's Sarah, and I'm a level 2 carpentry apprentice.
What's your last name, sir?
Blackler.
Sorry?
Blackler.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
All right.
No, it's so funny. It's such a, I feel like it's a very common last name, and a lot of people get it wrong. So.
How's it spelled?
Blackler. I get a lot of blacker. Yeah, oddly enough.
What's the origin of that?
I have a feeling it's probably they were a blacksmith. And probably English or German or something like that.
All right, that's nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But now you're woodworker, cabinet maker.
No, I'm a carpentry apprentice.
Apprentice?
Yes. Yeah, so I'm in level 2.
How many more hours do you have left?
I just double checked my hours. I'm just over halfway through. So 8,000, so just over 4,000 hours right now.
Well,
so
we'll get into that. There's a lot to talk about there. Mm-hmm. And so you work with Millennium Construction and Design Inc., right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And what's the social? Do you know offhand? Is it under that same title?
I
Probably.
do believe it's underneath the same title, or it's like Milco or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, Millennium Construction and Design Incorporated.
I'm excited about this, Chris, because I'm glad that you set this up. We haven't talked wood on the show for a long, long time. It's all about plumbers and concrete lately.
I noticed that.
No offense to plumbers and concrete, but it's good to get back on the wood train. You know what I mean?
Totally agree.
So we're going to talk. Now, Heather, you work for Covenant as well.
I do, yes.
Your official title there?
I'm a cabinet maker. I'm a red seal cabinet maker, so I went through the apprenticeship stuff as well. I did a 3-year woodworking technology program at Conestoga, so I kind of went a different route. I was exempt from the schooling portion of the apprenticeship, kind of skipped that, but I went ahead and wrote the exam 2 Augusts ago, so...
Are you glad that you went that route?
I really liked the 3-year program.
Okay.
At Conestoga, yeah.
All right. I haven't heard a negative thing about that school. Not a single negative thing.
It's a phenomenal facility.
Yeah.
55,000 square feet of shop space with everything in it. And the people who know how to...
Generations of talented, skilled people that are coming out of there and also that are there teaching.
Yep.
Which is what is valuable.
Yes.
But now you've been at Covenant for how long?
I've been working with Chris for about 6 years.
Okay.
So, following him around.
And now we have Chris McKaskell back.
Yeah, thrilled to be here.
And you have official title now? You were mentioning off mic before we get started?
That's right. Well, and I mean, I guess if there's anything sort of significant for me lately, it's that we recently dissolved McCaskill Heindel Design Build Inc. And so I am the retired president of McCaskill Heindel Design Build Inc.
End of an era.
End of an era. And we have joined Covenant Construction, where I am playing the role of director of craft.
Okay. We're going to get into that.
Sure.
Because I don't necessarily know what that is, but
I'm still
you
figuring it
explained
out.
a tiny bit. So obviously you can find you on IG under your name, Chris McKaskell, MCKASKELL. And then under Covenant Construction also on IG, and then the email is info at Covenant Construction.
Yeah, and people are always willing
To reach out.
Yeah, people are welcome to reach me. I'm very easy to find.
Quick shout out. I'm wearing JR's t-shirt today, JR Windows and Doors. Thanks so much, Joe. And then I also want to say that Tools in the Trade, I don't know, I think we did a show. I don't know, you probably heard on the show. They're doing extremely well. They just shared some information with me. 71 school boards across Ontario are using the boot camp. They've got 300 unique employers representing all sectors and skilled trades that are looking at these kids that are coming to these boot camps and checking them out and hiring them, which is great. They're getting all kinds of registered apprentices, employers joining the group. They're doing amazing things. So they just sent me that. And I got a nice card from out west. We did a show at the British Columbia Construction Safety Association, also known as the BCCSA. It's nice to have a card where there's not that many four-letter words in it. So it's great that they sent me a nice little thank you for the experience. They enjoyed it. It was a really good show where we talked a lot about safety, and in all fairness, BC is doing a lot better than we are here in Ontario. Well, I mean, fewer people, but they have stricter guidelines there. So that's what we talked a little bit on the show about, which is good, and they're trying to bring it here to Ontario. So good for them. And they sent me socks, and they sent me a hoodie.
Nice.
They sent me a bunch of stuff that I got that I'll be wearing eventually. Unleash your voice on the Construction Life podcast community. Are you passionate about the world of construction, trades, and all things building related? The Construction Life podcast wants to hear from you. Leave us a review, share your thoughts, insights, and experiences on your favorite podcast channel. Your review fuels our mission to create engaging and informative content for the construction community. Your feedback is the motor that holds our podcast together. Share your thoughts, rate us, and let the construction community know why The Construction Life is your go-to podcast. Visit our website and check out the nearly 500 tradespeople and construction professionals listed on the site. Connect with all of them. Check us out at www.theconstructionlife.com for additional content, behind-the-scenes exclusives, and valuable resources. Dive deeper into the construction world with articles, guest profiles, and more. Follow us on Instagram at TCL_The Construction Life. Follow us on TikTok under the same handle, and tweet us at TCL Construction. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, check out our link tree, and find exclusive discounts for listeners. Link is in the IG bio. Join the conversation on Facebook, the Construction Life community. That's the extent of my little spiel, and now we're going to talk about wood.
Nice. That episode, by the way, is on my list. I was like scrolling through this
People
morning
are
as I
making a
was
list
like working
now to
out.
go through?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot, right? So I
Yeah.
get a lot of people sending me messages going, can you please slow down because I can't keep up.
Your output seems quite high.
Well, you know what? People reach out, and then I'm like, sure, let's sit down and talk.
amazing.
I want to talk. So
Yeah.
I think I need to take a break soon.
Breaks are good.
Maybe. Get into it. I miss the smell of wood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to come up to you guys and get into the shop.
You are always welcome to come by.
I don't think I'll leave. That's the problem. It smells so good in there, huh?
Yeah.
All right, let's start off with, I know a little bit about Chris, but why did you guys get into it? I'm curious about that. What was that moment where you guys thought, this is what I want to do?
Do you want to go first?
I took a really roundabout route into woodworking. Like in high school, I thought I would maybe go into accounting, and then I ended up going into...
That's across the hall, by the way.
Yeah. I actually went to Ryerson for photography for 2 years.
Were you in the Bond building or
The
Bond Street? Bond Street building?
Like right downtown.
Yeah, the really ugly white one that they never put any money into. That's where the film, that's where I went way back when. So I think it's in the same building.
Probably. Like Gerrard Street was where the residence was. So that was supposed to be a 4-year program. I did 2 years, and then I took some time off, wondering what the heck to do. And I toured Conestoga's woodworking facility, and I saw other women on the shop floor, and that was encouraging.
Were you nervous that there wasn't going to be?
I don't know why I was, but yeah, I was.
Oh, okay.
And I just signed up for that 3-year program and loved every moment of it. Yeah, that's...
What was the first thing that you learned? What was the first lesson that they teach you in there?
We had a materials course that was really cool, like talking about how a tree grows. Like it was that in depth. I just really loved how in depth that whole program was.
Did they compare how it was and how it is today?
We talked about like forest sustainability strategies and stuff like that. Yeah, not
That
too
would have
much.
been interesting.
Yeah.
Fascinating to learn that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Sarah, you're...
Yeah, I also came kind of a roundabout way. This is a second career. So I originally went to school out of high school for fitness and health promotion. And I worked as a personal trainer and a yoga teacher and a mindfulness instructor for over 10 years. So had a bit of a change during COVID. So I think a lot of people went through like very serious changes and realized that I had no work-life balance, which was quite ironic because that's what I was teaching everybody else to have. And I realized that I needed to change my whole view on what I was going to do for the rest of my life. So I took almost a full year off, and I, kind of tried to, am I going to go back to school? What am I going to do? Am I going to commit to a 4-year? I had been to university as well for 2 years and hated it. So I'm like, that's not for me. And I helped my stepdad refinish this pontoon boat. And I was wearing like overalls and like holding a drill. And I'm like, this feels pretty good. I like this. And I started looking at pre-apprenticeship programs because I really didn't have any experience with tools. Like maybe I had used a drill like a couple of times. And I found one. It wasn't going to work for me. And then I found the WIST program at Conestoga, which is a 1-year pre-apprenticeship for general carpentry. And it's women in skilled trades. Yeah. And as long as you've made under a certain amount of money, you can be considered for the program. It's, I think, about 20 to 23 applicants that they accept. And so it's tuition free. You get like basic hand tools. You just have to provide, you have to have a pouch and steelies and safety glasses and stuff. But yeah, and it gives you your level 1 in-class equivalency for carpentry apprenticeship.
That's a great start for
so
both
it was
of you
awesome.
guys. And then now you're almost at the end of getting your hours or halfway through. And
about halfway through. I'm in school right now. I did tell my teachers I was going to be here today, so it's all good. We were online today, which is the benefit of it being hybrid. Okay. I wish it wasn't, but it's a benefit for today. So yeah, I have a week and a half or just under 2 weeks left of my level 2. And then I'll go back to work for about a year and then level 3 and then finish up my hours and do the CFQ. So I'm excited.
And I don't want to ignore you, Chris, but the thing is, like, you could probably share a little bit about your backstory, and because it's been a while since you've been on the show. Like,
it's been, yeah, right.
Back in the double digits, right?
Of course, yeah, no, and I ended up. So I've got 2 trade licenses: general carpentry and cabinet making. One of the other reasons I was really interested to bring a carpenter and a cabinet picker along today, because I really see it as a continuum. I don't see it as sort of
for sure
broken up segments. And my background includes building pipe organs. I spent several years of my apprenticeship in a wood carving studio. There was some furniture making going on. Eventually working my way into where I am now. I mean, at McCaskell Heindel for many years, we were really focused on high-end custom, primarily residential, but occasionally getting into commercial environments, more sort of restaurants and things that are viewable. Yeah. So a degree of theatricality, which plays into when I first started going to university. It was the theater program at York. Did a little bit of time there, and here we are after 35 years in the business.
It's a lot of projects under your belt.
There have been a few kilometers, yes.
Yeah. And do you guys? Well, do you both work in the same space? Everybody works in either commercial and residential, or is it like you flipping back and forth?
Residential for us.
Residential for you guys?
Yeah, I would say that 80% of the work we do is residential.
Residential.
Yep. So Covenant, mostly additions and renovations, maybe 1 or 2 new homes a year. But very select. So not so Terry and license, yes, but actively being when you think about home builders, you think often about tract housing or development. Not so much like that. More sort of custom home, ultimately end user based.
Well, I see a lot of people getting into the commercial side of things, and I think it's because of the creative opportunities. There's a lot more freedom, right? And without saying the S word regarding cabinetry, right? It's just most clients are asking for shaker, so then you don't really see shaker in commercial applications, right?
There's a bit of that. I mean, I think the biggest reason that people end up finding their way into commercial is because it tends to be a little less emotional as well. So when you're dealing with a homeowner, there can be a significant amount of mutual understanding that needs to be expressed. It can be, there's some real pitfalls, and if you're not experienced with that degree of relationship building, things can go awry, or they can be wildly successful, and you can create the home of someone's dreams and leave everybody happy. Commercial is more about
functionality.
Precisely. Now
aesthetic functionality.
You can get into creative stuff. So one of the interesting things, projects that's coming up on the shop floor is a ceiling treatment for a new restaurant, West Social, which is going to be opening in London sometime early this summer, late spring, early summer. And we've developed this way of sort of making wood look like ribbons in close association with 1226 Victoria Morphy, a young designer in London who I've had the great pleasure of working with over the last few years. And so that's a commercial situation.
What are you guys making that? Like, is it being CNC'd or is it?
Oh no, this is all handmade. So we're taking veneers and we are laminating them together,
shaping them
in a variety of different flowing shapes, and then we're shaping the edges.
Wow!
And then we'll end up hanging them from the ceiling, from the trusses of primarily the lounge area of the restaurant. We'll be finishing them with a fire retardant finish to fulfill those obligations, and then hanging them in a kind of a haphazard way, not a haphazard way, that's the wrong word, in a flowing, irregular way, in conjunction with lighting elements, to create this kind of flowing, moving, sound dampening feature. It'll end up being, I think it's about 35 feet long, 24 feet wide, 25 feet wide.
Are you looking for a sustainable and durable real wood solution to elevate your next project? Let me introduce you to the gold standard. Thermery, the world's largest and most trusted manufacturer of thermally modified wood and sauna materials. Their wood is like the superhero version of regular wood, stronger, more stable, and ready to take on whatever Mother Nature throws its way. With a wide range of thermally modified wood products from decking and cladding to sauna and statement walls, when you choose Thermery, you're not just investing in quality, you're investing in the health of our planet too. Join countless architects, designers, builders, and homeowners who have trusted Thermery to bring their vision to life. The best way to fully experience the Thermery difference is to hold the real thing in your hands, so visit their website today at www.thermeryusa.com and also find them on IG at ThermeryUSA.
I'm really looking forward to this. This is a project I've been working on for a little while.
How do you handle that? Because obviously they presented to you. Did they give you any sketches to begin with? Did they start with something?
Well, that's the marvelous thing about the design process. It started with sort of an idea that turned into a few meetings where we were playing with plasticine. I brought plasticine and a board and a few other artistic supplies out to a meeting, and we played around with them, and that went home with Victoria's mother, Kim, who's part of the process, a big part of the process, and they played around with it. A few weeks later, we met again with this kind of a maquette of the piece, and then that shifted into, wow, that's a really interesting form. How are we going to make it? And I spent about a year playing with. I mean, the first version was a solid white oak board that I hand carved to look like ribbon, very labor intensive.
Yeah, I was just saying that's the first thought I had.
Yeah, and that shifted to what can we do with veneers, and ultimately we came up with this really sort of cool, lightweight. I'm not going to say that it's a simple thing to make, but it's certainly a lot simpler than hand carving everything.
But you already have, I'm trying to figure out how the client approaches you guys, and all of a sudden, I guess they give you a phrase or a briefing, and they give you keywords, and you kind of hone in on those keywords, and then you start creating something to present to them. So now it's the first time that you're visually seeing what's been expressed verbally. So
the interesting thing I'm finding about the work that we're doing right now is there are a number of different avenues it can go down. This particular project is very creative. So the client came to us with a very specific application, and then it all became this sort of creative problem-solving discussion, a dialogue.
Yeah.
Right? And at some points the dialogue is, at some points the vocabulary is physical, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're creating something. That versus, say, somebody needing an addition in a kitchen, which is a completely different kind of design that I never get involved with. We've got a whole design department for dealing with that. But, that's more about how does somebody reside within the space and how they're going to be using it, versus more of a functional and aesthetic application like these ceiling ribbons, ceiling treatment.
So I'm sure that you guys probably see this too earlier when you guys got started. How important is that relationship factor of your skill? Because, I mean, I've said it on the show several times, and I met so many tradespeople. And in the beginning, when you start your career, it's all about the skill. It's all about the skill. Everything's about the skill. I can pull off anything skill-wise, right? But the relationship, communication, understanding who you're working with, those are all valuable assets. How important are they to you guys?
I think it's pretty important. I mean, I, as an apprentice, don't have a whole lot of work where I'm directly...
It's coming, though.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And and even though I'm not taking the lead on those conversations, like...
You're making
I'm
notes.
Watching, and I'm paying attention to what customers are saying and what they really want. Because I think sometimes they're saying something, but they're not really...
It's good that you learned that lesson early.
Because then, we provide and maybe they're not happy with it. So how could that be avoided? Or maybe how could we try to limit?
It's challenging.
Yeah, it is.
Their perception of what they think is coming down the pipe is completely different than what you present.
And in my opinion, it's not fair to assume that a homeowner is going to have any sort of understanding of what we're talking about.
They shouldn't.
They really shouldn't.
Because you're the professional at that point. So you're the one that's bringing that understanding.
Yeah, exactly.
You have the same thoughts?
I think the software that our designers are beginning to use with like renderings is very helpful. Yeah. I don't know, like that's probably fairly recent development where they can actually see it in 3D with the software. That probably is very helpful.
Now, is it a double edge at that point? Because now you're showing them so much and they're like, well, can you just tweak this and change this?
Oh, and if the rendering is anything, like strays in any direction that it doesn't actually end up being exactly what the rendering looks like, that's dangerous.
That. Yeah.
That's dangerous.
You almost want to give them like here, just have this little tidbit and then take it away. Don't let them have it. Just let them see it and then don't let them
You almost want to set up like a woodworker's kind of optometrist thing where you can block the eyes so you don't see the whole drawing or something.
And you've got me thinking about the there are some key moments in the design process. And the design process, in my experience, doesn't end when the drawings are done. It continues on. Right. Well, in a lot of cases, yes. I mean, ideally, from a production standpoint, you've got all of the parts and pieces sorted out before you begin production.
You have to. Yeah.
That said, again, one of the really nice things about having a design department in-house is, as you're fabricating something, you might encounter issues that are impossible to notice on paper and impossible to notice during the early design discussion stage.
Very true.
That suddenly becomes manifest in this physical thing that you've created. And then to be able to bring everybody in and discuss it and further develop the design or maybe alter things so that it's going to work just right it's a superpower.
It's that moment before the storm, though, because you're presenting to the client, and I guess it's like that initial reaction, whether they love it or if there's silence, it's whether they hate it.
In our experience, often is that the client loves being part of the process. So Leah...
Is that dangerous, though, like you guys mentioned? No, it's not? It directs you.
Certainly it can be.
But it directs you. It directs the movement of where you want this project to go, especially like something that you guys are creating with that ceiling.
Yeah.
Like that's completely being fabricated right in front of your eyes, right?
But let's remember the emotional part of it, right? And this is one of the things that in commercial you tend not to bump up against, right? You go in, you do your work, you're gone, that's it. You 90 days later you get paid, whatever. In residential, you're going to be in that person's house for months on a large project.
Yeah.
We recently had a project where we were building a face frame kitchen for a 1930s. It was a craftsman style bungalow. Wonderful old wood, wonderful old elements. They really wanted something that fit into that environment. So we're creating this face frame cabinetry using special veneers. We ended up using gray elm, which is not a common veneer to use. It was a lot of fun to work with. Ran into a problem where, again, something that the way that a particular piece of hardware moved worked on paper, but in reality, it was bumping into stuff. And to be able to bring in this case, the designer, Leah Turner, who is a wonderful woman to work with, and the homeowners came in, and we had a series of meetings on the shop floor where we played with the stuff, moved it around, and because they were part of the process, they became as enamored of the project as we were on the shop floor. It was magic.
And you get them thinking flexibly, more flexibly. When you actually have them in the shop. Like, here's why we can't do this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, is there a little bit of reining in going on there? Because if they start veering off into other mystical woodworking lands, like you start opening up a can of worms?
Well, and I mean, there are scope changes. I mean, we're all aware of the risk of scope creep, right? But
Scope creep?
Scope creep, yeah. Where
Never heard that. What is that?
Oh gosh, sure. Well, you know,
is that in Webster's or what?
Everything's been priced. You know, we're all really clear on what the scope is, and then things start going sideways. And at a certain point, that's going to add to the dollar value.
That's when you start hearing the rumble strips on the highway.
Well, and so it's very important to understand where the boundaries are, and then have that difficult conversation about...
Do it then.
Yeah. So we can make these changes in order... So something's not working. That's a simple one. That's on us, right? Let's figure this out. We'll find a solution. Everybody's happy. Versus, well, since we're doing that, why don't we make these cabinets 3 inches taller? Well, slow down. Different conversation.
It's true. And it brings up a really important question I want to ask all three of you guys is... the biggest thing that I hear from a lot of young woodworkers, cabinet makers, trim people, all this stuff, they don't know where to start pricing. They have no gauge. Like when it goes into other trades, plumber, electrician, HVAC, there's a grocery list of products. You know how long it takes to install these products. You guys are starting off with a piece of paper and design and then client, and you have to find a dollar value attached to that. How do you guys tackle pricing to any of these projects that you work on?
I'm lucky I haven't had to do that yet. Or unlucky.
But it's coming.
Maybe. No, I know. And so it's something that I'm really cognizant of, that I'm like really paying attention while other leads, if I'm on site with a lead, how are they doing takeoffs for things specifically? And then how do they account, like how much percentage do they account for waste? And does that change depending on if I'm on site or if the other apprentice is on site?
Yeah.
Or does that vary? Like, do they just have a baseline? Or, and I don't do a lot of side work at this point, but if I have coworkers who have side work and they add a little extra and they're happy to bring me on, I love that, because again, I'm not necessarily at the point where I'm capable of cultivating my own work, i.e. lack of tools and skills and whatnot. But then I can ask them, oh, okay, so like, can you tell me, how did you plan this out? How did you decide how much to charge them? You know, it kind of feels gauche in a way to talk about money, but I like to. I want to know what's the nitty gritty that I need to know if I'm going to do this on my own. Is it still bare bones,
just time and money? It's just like, or time and material? Not really. You can't. That equation doesn't work.
There's a little bit of science and a whole lot of art. It's
yeah,
right. I mean, one of the things that when Heindel and I joined, one of the things that we brought value in was our historical records. Right. I've been keeping track of everybody's hours for a quarter of a century, so I've got a pretty good idea how long it takes to do a lot of stuff.
There's a pattern.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't matter who's starting and who's coming in.
And it's never precise,
okay,
but it's usually precise enough to make it worthwhile.
Okay.
But I cannot imagine being able to do that without having... it's really easy to begin adopting a sense of magical thinking around pricing. That'll only take a day. Whereas if you've actually you've forced yourself and you've been disciplined about looking at the timesheets and adding it all up, you realize that day is actually 45 hours long. And you got to charge for those hours because you're paying somebody by the hour.
Of course.
And the discipline part is being willing to walk away from a job because you know you can't possibly do it for the homeowner's budget.
Well, the question is, where did the homeowner get that budget amount?
And that can be...
because they magically find that one somewhere.
I hate to say it, but I've always been of the opinion that cabinet makers are their own worst enemies, in the sense that in a lot of places, and you can get onto any number of the different chat groups online, and you will find people arguing about how quickly they can do things. And nothing is ever, it's always, I could do that for less. It's just sort of fighting to the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, but that's where it goes to, like, what's your worth? You have to figure out what your worth is, right?
Well, and perhaps more importantly, I would rather be part of an organization that, is willing to stand up for its value and be able to confidently say that, yeah, we're going to be around 10 years from now. So we can continue adding to, I should back that up a little bit. It's not uncommon for us to be taken in by a family to do a bathroom that leads to a kitchen, that leads to 2 more bathrooms, that leads to some furniture.
Back to the relationships.
The next thing you know, you've spent a decade with these people.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you really want.
Absolutely.
But I guess in the beginning, are you guys nervous about saying no?
No, only because I have experience before being a personal trainer. And I got to this place where felt like I couldn't say no. And I kept saying yes, even if it was to my detriment. And so now coming into this new career, I'm coming in with really good boundaries where of course I want to take on side work because it's a great way for me to continue to develop skills and master ones I already have and make a little extra money. That's great. But it comes with the acknowledgement that I can't do that every weekend. And I certainly can't do it both days every single weekend because that would burn me out so fast. So
in the beginning, the skills are important, so you'll take the hit. But then at some point, you got to realize that this is still a business. I'm running a career here, right? So I have to make money.
Yeah. I mean, I think my priorities at this point aren't to run my own business because I've had that experience as well. And maybe down the line that'll change. But at this point, I kind of love being a minion, where someone tells me what I need to go do. That's great. And then I go home and I don't have to worry about it.
It's very stress-free.
It's kind of nice.
It's very, very nice, actually. Yeah. Rules, compliance, regulations. These are all super critical things. We use tools that require high safety standards. We have to meet compliance and regulations at all times, not just for governmental issues, but to avoid putting out employees at risk. Every tool requires a different kind of training and understanding of how to operate it safely. Every rule needs to be fully understood. We need to know who's qualified to do certain jobs and who's not. All these are important things we managers must take care of to keep safety high at all times. Now, getting it done is way harder than talking about it, but luckily there's a platform I found that can help you out with everything I just mentioned. A great software called ConnectTeam, which has training and quizzes that you can build in any way you'd like to make sure your employees always know how to handle certain tools. You can see who's done at a certain course or quiz and who didn't complete it and can't work with a certain tool until they do. You also have the ability to update if there's a new regulation you need everybody to be aware of ASAP. And there's a simple overview screen to track who saw it. Plus, ConnectTeam Schedule allows you to add limitations for certain jobs. So if one of your employees is not qualified to do a certain job, the system will automatically notify you about it. The platform offers a lot more, such as easy access to playbooks and hazard reports. Just check them out for yourself. ConnectTeam has a free plan and a 14-day free trial. Try them today by checking out the link in the show notes. But it's also nice to overhear the conversations in the event something, you got to take the wheel of a plane or something, and you got to land it, right?
So I'm definitely, don't get me wrong, I'm not checking out when I'm there, unless I'm digging a hole. Then the brain turns off. That's a nice brain vacation, is digging a whole day. And that happens. I love that.
There's another piece of that, a part to that, and that's the teamwork part. I mean, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that anybody who's on the shop floor, any of the members of our millwork team, when they're on site, we're all on the same script, right? And so, in terms of reassuring a homeowner, if they've got concerns about the way, say, a cabinet project is moving along, Heather spent a lot of time with me working. A lot of other folks on the shop floor spent a lot of time with Heather. It sort of follows along that we're all working off of the same script, which is extremely important.
The objective is there for everybody.
Yes, precisely. And, the emotional piece, again, is about ensuring that, a homeowner can be confident in the work that you're doing and confident in your knowledge. And that confidence and competence can really only be imparted through communication, which is about having everybody kind of on the same page when they're communicating, right? And so
was it a challenge during the funny years where material costs were going through the roof and you guys were seeing certain species of wood
Yep, absolutely.
Prices like were just spiking through historicals. Like,
Absolutely.
and then you had to communicate with the client this, right?
Yep.
And they were reluctant to go forward on a project, or were you getting still yeses moving forward?
A little bit of both. I mean, it was a moving. The ground seemed to move a lot at that particular moment. But I'm going to. I would suggest that for the most part, the direction had been chosen. The path maybe hadn't been chosen, and so. Sometimes when you're picking a path, you know that you're working towards an addition or a kitchen or a whatever piece of furniture. Maybe you've got to take things back to the design stage again to pick that path.
It's just more communication skills. That's all
Totally,
it is, really,
100%.
right? It's not like you're shutting everything down. You just have to recollect, your thoughts and just where to start all over again. Challenging. I'm curious on who's influencing you guys on what type of tools to use.
Like brand-wise and...
I'm just curious because I've always said that it's got nothing to do with influencers out there. It's got everything to do with who's actually pointing the educational pointer. You know what I mean?
I would say like I've used different brands of different materials that are owned by other people in my shop, and then I can make a decision that way. That's how I've been.
So is
exposed.
it that you use something for the first time, you try it, you do a project, it works out really well, and you're like, part of that reason it was the tool. Most of it was me, but part of that reason was the tool. So I'm going to stick with this tool. Is that kind of the mindset?
Yeah, or like different track saws. I've tried 3 different brands of track saws, and so I can then go pick which one I like.
Who's got the best one?
Chris.
Yours is Fest, isn't it? Isn't it Fest?
No, I've actually got a Bosch. I had gone during the pandemic to pick up a T75, a Festool T75. They were back ordered throughout all of North America. I needed something. The Bosch was on sale. Picked up the
Did you
Bosch.
get the battery one, or did you get the?
No, I got the corded. Yeah,
I got a cord. I love it.
and it was fantastic. It had the power I needed. Maybe not the depth of cut the T75 has got, but
What's the difference here? We were talking about like what?
oh, another 3/4 of an inch. That'll
much
make a difference.
difference,
Yeah,
huh?
that'll make a difference.
I gotta grab it with the track saws in the arbor, man.
That's unfortunate.
They all do that on purpose.
Yeah.
Sneaky little consumer brands.
I haven't had any regrets about the Bosch, and I have
It's
to
the
say,
same blade though. It's just the arbor's different. So you're forced to buy a track saw blade, which is more expensive than a regular blade.
and somebody out there in the world can correct me. I'm completely blanking right now, but I think the TS75 has got a slightly larger blade. And I apologize if I'm incorrect
maybe
about
that's wrong.
that.
I don't know, but
Not sure.
listen, from my understanding, tools don't make money; accessories make money.
Well,
see that.
in the end, skills. I mean, what were we doing before we had track saws? Right?
Navigating some risky waters on a table saw.
Yeah, or
Nice.
setting up
By ourselves?
setting up a straight edge
Ooh.
with a regular circular saw, right?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
clamping down a piece
Yep.
of, yeah, for sure. Yeah, used to it. So, okay, so Festool, or no, Bosch.
And some of it is just what seasoned cabinet makers are using, and they've tested all of them out. Like Brad talking about which belt sander is the best, or
Which is the best?
well, Porter Cable is what he would maybe say, or MCaDi.
But Porter Cable's so high. It's almost like a double-decker bus, right? I like my low-profile Makita
Yep.
just because it's low profile. It's almost like you can use it as a palm sander.
And in our shop, we've got a couple of each.
Dario has a Ryobi belt sander that he can hold with one hand, and that's why he likes it.
I was literally just going to
See,
say
that
that.
sometimes you want to have a one-hand belt sanding action instead of a orbiter flat pad
I
action.
mostly use my belt sander for scribing, or sometimes if I'm taking out a lot of material when I'm coping. And my boss had this massive one, and I felt so weak. Like, I'm not a tiny woman, and I'm trying to hold it, and I'm trying
challenging.
It was so frustrating. I've never been so frustrated. And then I was in wherever, saw the Ryobi one, picked it up, and I was like, oh yeah, and it's great.
Pretty smart.
It's so
I'm
nice.
not knocking it. It's pretty smart.
Yeah.
So is that where you're leaning? Like, what other brands are? I'm just curious.
At Conestoga, the shop was completely, what's it called? Not supported, sponsored by DeWalt.
Okay.
So I used all DeWalt tools.
Smart move on their part.
Really smart move on their part. I liked them. They felt really comfortable. And then I won an award, and I got a Milwaukee drill set through school. So I was like, yes, I'm a Milwaukee girl now. And honestly, I like it. The only thing, I ended up going with a lot of the like M18, like fuel, the really intense, big stuff. And
The bricks.
They're freaking heavy.
The bricks.
They're so heavy.
I
But
know.
I'm
Powerful
like,
bricks.
You know what? I'm okay with it because I want to get stronger. It's good. I am strong. So, but needless to say, in the future, I'm probably going to get like some of their smaller options for things like the M12s that they have now, which are equally as powerful, I think, compared to some of the other stuff, but a little bit smaller, a little bit easier to maybe handle.
I think tools are like driver's licenses or driving cars. It's like as you get older, you just want things that are very reliable and that don't necessarily go very fast and hard, right? So we take it easier. As there's going to be a point at some point you're going to be like, I don't need all that power. I'm good with this.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I could see that.
One brand that I'm really liking is Mirka for sanding.
Listen, you're not the first. A lot of people have been saying it's a better sander.
I mean, for one thing, it's something they specialize in.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas, Festool, love my Domino, love their dust extractors. I have had issues with some of the other equipment that I've used. I don't really like the balance on the Planex sanders. The Mirka, the ergonomics are right. The feel is right because of the paddle. I kind of like the paddle. It's more industrial feeling to me. The range of possibilities and the fact that it all hooks up really nicely to to multiple different dust extraction systems is perfect.
Is it? That's all they do?
Yeah, polishers and sanders.
But just just kind of sanding.
Yeah.
Or
Well, so everybody knows about the Deros, the 6-inch Deros, or the 5-inch Deros, right?
Yeah.
But you go through a catalog and the number of different configurations is huge. And I totally understand why the distributors don't carry all of that stuff. But if you have the chance to look at a catalog, it's like absolutely phenomenal how many different.
They should start putting those catalogs like in doctors' offices, right? Instead of
think so, right?
Kind
Instead of
car
magazines
mag,
and
car
things like
mag
that.
or something like that, or whatever, motorcycle mag. Like just start putting the tool mag there.
Yes.
I think people will steal them though. That's the thing. Or they'll just tear out the sheets.
Yeah.
Like
Circle it, pin it up on the
Dog
Christmas
ear.
list.
and there's a question about a dust extraction, right? Because you're talking about using a belt sander for scribing, which totally makes sense. But you're working in not a dust-free environment.
Correct.
You wouldn't necessarily do that in an environment with a finished kitchen in it.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's always done outside. Yeah. So if I'm assisting with an install and we're scribing stuff, that's done outside. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, 100%.
There is no good dust extraction for a belt sander though.
Oh, I had a situation a little while ago where I actually took my huge Porter cable, the whatever it is, 4x24, and jury rigged a way to hook it up to my dust extraction system, and it worked.
But is it 1 1/4 inch or how?
Yeah,
big?
so I need to make a reducer.
You got to do an adapter
for sure.
of some sort.
But as soon as that was done, as soon as that was in place, the dust extraction was extraordinary. I was removing a significant amount of white oak material and not producing any airborne dust at all.
Cool.
It's good to know.
Yeah, we're talking 400 CFM on the dust extractor when it was turned up to full. That was sufficient.
And it collected a good amount of it then.
Yeah.
You had a little bit because just of the opening.
Yeah, but none of it was going airborne, right?
No.
I mean, a belt sander really has the potential to throw things around. Any of the dust that remained tended to remain on the workpiece. There was no cleaning up around me in the surrounding area, so I was really impressed.
Back to the school, I'm curious, when you guys were there, were there enough kids in school?
Yeah, I mean, I think my program's slightly different, and maybe I can speak to like the actual like apprenticeship intake now as well too. But because the WIST program only takes in a certain amount of women, I think they really go through a rigorous interview process. Because their program is government funded, they want to make sure that the metrics that they receive from the women that come into the program are quite high. So they want to see you successful. They want to see you not only get into a job, but also hopefully continue your apprenticeship. So I think they try to get as many women in, but also make sure that it's a high retention rate. We did, I would say, probably lose about 1/4 of the students throughout the year. So that was from a varying amount of issues. I mean, a couple of the students were parents, single parents, as some were traveling. There was someone who was coming from like Kingston to Conestoga, to Waterloo.
Really?
Yeah. And so she had rented this apartment like in Toronto. So like there was a lot of people who were trying to make really challenging circumstances work. So I think that
So it wasn't really loss of interest in that trade.
I don't think so.
It was more just their personal circumstances.
Yeah. That's how it felt to me. Because I think the women who I had spoken to, who I noticed didn't come back after first semester, they seemed as interested in it as I was. And then when it comes to the intake now with level 2, I'm actually at Fanshawe for that. And it's a full class, I think. Like, I don't think we're low. It's maybe around 22 as well, or 21 students. Yeah, which I think is normal. What was your program like?
I was in a diploma program, and I think Conestoga's Woodworking Technology diploma program has capacity for like 90 students at a time.
How many teachers?
Lots of teachers.
Wow, that seems like that's a lot of kids, huh?
So my class was probably 77 or 79 when we started, and I don't know what the dropout rate is, but and I think it's been a continuous struggle to keep those enrollment numbers up. I do think that. I do sit on the program advisory committee, and I've continued to hear about like how they're keeping their numbers up, and a lot of it is international students.
They're coming in with skill set or with drive, and we just don't have that in the homegrown?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's just maybe guidance counselors need to be talking to their high school students about going into the trades and celebrating going into the trades. I'm not sure why the international students are filtering into this woodworking technology program, but
I wonder how much the government does inquire about, because I'm always fascinated about this when I'm speaking to people that have gotten out of construction. I always want to know why. What's the reason why? So when I start seeing kids get in, they're excited about it, but then they leave after the first year or midway through that first year. What's the real reason why they're getting out? Is it just the stigma? Is it, I don't think it's the money, because I think the money's there, but it could be the stigma. But there's, like, I'd be curious if the government's actually doing any homework on finding out why they leave. I think they're good at finding out why they get in, but that's not really a fair assessment. I want to know staying in. That's more valuable, that number, than getting in.
For sure.
Well, the government's got some real challenges in the sense that they don't really know who's in the trade and who's not unless people are actually writing the exams and taking on the license. I sat for several years on the cabinet maker trade board at the Ontario College of Trades. We got to see the data, and we figured that probably, because it's a voluntary trade, cabinet making, probably 90 to 95% of the people who are practicing the trade were never registered apprentices, were never licensed cabinet makers. And so there's a whole whack of people out there the government doesn't know about, whereas the culture of carpentry tends to be a little bit more in line with, you're encouraged to finish the training and write the exam. Yeah. Certainly our carpenters are.
Yeah, definitely.
In our shop, people are encouraged to write the exam, but we're rare. And so if the government doesn't realize these folks are actually engaged in the trade, they're going to make decisions based on the small numbers they do see.
Yeah. But there's a whole workforce out there across Canada that's not going that route, but still has the skills.
Yeah, but if the data is not there for the government to look at, the data's not there.
How else can they find out about that data?
That's tricky. And I mean, we recognized in cabinet making that there were some really sort of horrifying changes happening in the education system when cabinet making programs started closing in place of, and taking their place were construction technology programs. And so at some point, and this is probably happening at the organized labor level, but somebody out there was organized enough to go and speak with guidance counselors, speak with boards of education, speak with the government. There was a lot of lobbying going on to sort of direct people into carpentry. A lot of the folks that we have coming in as co-op kids, because we engage kids in co-op programs as often as we can to give them that exposure to the trade. But a lot of them didn't even realize that cabinet making was a trade. They're coming to us as construction technology kids, thinking that woodworking is about building houses, not realizing that woodworking can be about making furniture or cabinets. Seriously.
Yeah.
It's still a skill.
But if it's not something that is being encouraged at the school level, at the high school level, for instance, then they're not going to have that skill as a potential goal.
CCS, engineering and construction for everything. From dental and medical office renovations to commercial construction and complete home remodeling, they do it all. CCS has in-house experts that will make your next project feel effortless. Their streamlined process ensures efficiency and outstanding project quality. From your initial design to your final vision, CCS will see your project through from start to finish. CCS serves clients across Ontario. Join the growing CCS family today. Visit ccsengcon.com or call 226-499-2CCS to schedule a consultation. CCS Engineering Construction for everything. Why is Canada not leading? Why do you guys think that, like, there isn't enough effort put into skilled trades? I don't think. Not in this country.
I totally agree.
I mean, I've spoken to people in Australia and New Zealand. I've spoken to people in UK. It just seems like there's a lot more love going on at the government level over there than there is here. And unless you're part of these organized, I call them unions, like unless you're feeding that union machine. But there's a lot of small business owners that don't kind of work that union. And they're building their business still on the same parameters of the union. So they're giving all the benefits. They're treating their employees just as good, if not better. But they don't want to go down that route of the union, right? So they stay away from that. But then now it's not being recognized. But I find that other countries are doing far better than we are when we can be doing so much more.
I mean, speaking from the perspective of being a student, when I was in high school, really was not even considered a career option, realistically. There was something...
It wasn't brought up, right?
It really wasn't brought up. We did have the opportunity to select auto, woodworking, or tech, I think it was called.
That's the go-to. Like, I mean, but we know there's like 80 some odd skilled trades out there, right?
And that was an option if you didn't want to select music or arts or theater. And as a young woman in high school, I was like...
3 jobs that you're not going to have making money.
Right. No, you're not going to make any money. But of course I was like, I want to go play music with my friends in band. Are you kidding me?
Sure.
So it was never... I really had not considered working in a trade at all. So it's something that I grew up in a really small community, and my goals as I continue to learn and grow are to encourage more people, of course women in that, but people in general, to look at the trades, and not just carpentry, but cabinet making or electrical or plumbing or HVAC. Like, I have a number of friends who work in the trades in some capacity, and I keep like reaching out to them, asking them like, hey, how are you doing? Are you taking on co-op students? Like, what does that look like for you? And oftentimes it's no, but I'm interested. So I think, like we were talking about that earlier today, about bringing on co-op students or bringing on apprentices. And I think sometimes a lot of companies don't really know what needs to be done in order to do that, and they're hesitant to do it because they think it's going to be more of a time suck and a money suck rather than giving back to them in the long run. But you were saying it's a long game, but it's worth it.
A lot of employers don't realize that these programs are even available. Co-op placements and those sorts of supportive programs. And they are entirely worth taking part in. It's a really low-risk way of allowing somebody who's considering a life in the trades to be exposed to what the trade's about in a relatively safe and non-damaging, non-committal kind of way. Go in, see what the work's like, experience the work for a few weeks, and then either choose to continue down that path or choose another one.
Does the schools, I don't know this, but I mean, do they offer awards? Are there awards per graduating year?
Like, are you talking high schools?
Well, not in high school, in Conestoga or Fanshawe. Are there so like whatever, best cabinet or project, there's these awards, right?
Yeah, we have a winner here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah?
Best in manufactured product, I think it was called.
What do you get out of it? Like, what is it that you get?
Bragging rights.
And I bring it up because I remember, like, you remember Carlito when he was on the show, right? When you were on there a long time ago, and he joked around in the early days of the construction life. It's like, we should do awards for each, like, a year. Like, we'll do best plumbing show, best woodworking show, and all. I'm like, these are great ideas, until he started showing me some designs of these trophies, and I was like, that's not going to work, right? And so we kind of left it alone. But I started thinking, this award thing is something there. Like, this recognition is something there, and that could be something that the government could possibly be doing to encourage more people to like. I remember when I was going to post and I started doing, like, just to get in an interview for a creative element at an education post, you had to present something. You had to come up with something and design something and present this and present where your creativity came from. So I don't know if that's something that could be done for trades, where you want to get into a certain school or you want to get into a certain business, you got to present your best foot forward.
Your portfolio.
Like you walk in with a project that you completed, you show, and you kind of describe where your thought process came from to create this object, right? And then that gives you some insight into this person. But if the government were to support the industry on that might encourage more kids to come into the industry, where I've got a great idea for next year's award assembly, right?
Well, there are awards out there. It seems to me I looked at an email the other day that came in from the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum. Unfortunately, we can't be part of that because the cost of membership is prohibitive. So it seems to be geared, again, more towards organized labor and certainly supported by government at a very high level. The opportunity to award employers would probably need to extend. I'm trying really hard not to say something negative about unions, and I apologize.
You want me to say it?
No. It's from what I've seen from my end of the severe, a lot of the attention at the government level seems to be going more towards that rather than private enterprise.
100%, because there's big fat envelopes being exchanged here and there, right? So I get that. This is my thought process about the award, right? This is what I'm thinking about. We don't have the best boardwalk in city speaking, right? There's other cities that have much better boardwalks than our boardwalk, right? And our boardwalk could be better. But what if you gave the opportunity to a bunch of kids to design benches that went along that entire boardwalk, different style of benches, and just let the kids, like, you still have to get it through an approval process where, okay, it still has to be a bench. It can't be something crazy. Like, it can't be some sort of extreme, I don't know, scorpion claw thing or something like that. It's got to be still functional, right? Yeah. But it has to be creative and functional. And you have to understand that I bet you any money a bunch of kids out there would be thinking, I got a really interesting idea for a bench on Toronto's boardwalk. And that would just open up creativity. And then we could start adding more and more benches, because I don't know if you guys walk it, but I walk it. And every so often I want to sit down and just take in the view. But if I'm sitting down on a bench that some kid designed and built and fabricated and was mentored, and I call the positivity around it.
The other nice thing about that is, regardless of the path that somebody ends up taking, it's also taking part of the design process, which out in the field, quite often there's a real division, right? The designer does the design and never talks to the folks who are actually making. But if you can set up a greater appreciation, a greater sort of understanding between those two segments, you can bring them together and have a more harmonious outcome, I think.
Yeah. And I think it can lend itself as well to coming from like a construction perspective, that a lot of times we have design in-house, but sometimes we have to problem solve a little bit. So we might have that original design and then things end up getting shifted or changed for some reason or another. And as a lead carpenter, I've seen it where they've had to go, okay, I'm not a designer, but what do you think about this? And they've brought up these ideas of ways to take the issue, whatever it may be, and fix it, and at the same time maybe end up adjusting that design a little bit. But I think having some little, like, dipping your toes into the water of design in some way, or having maybe that creative muscle being flexed in some capacity, then will allow you to be more inclined to be like, yeah, no problem, let's fix this for you right now. Not, oh, we're gonna have to talk to the designer, this is gonna take, how much more time and money and whatever.
See, that when I hear that, I just think about how many kids are actually just walking away from the opportunity to be in this industry because they are confronted with roadblocks that way, right? Like, I don't know personally anybody that came from construction that became a politician. I don't think that those genes or those chromosomes don't exist. You know what I mean? I don't think you could actually become a politician if you're in construction. I don't know anybody.
Well, no, it's interesting that you should suggest that. In terms of management and leadership, one of the books that I draw on quite often is a book by he's actually a self-defense guy named Rory Miller. The book is called Conflict Communications. It looks at ways of avoiding conflict and how to sort of manage conflict. I found it unbelievably useful in managing different kinds of personalities, both on the shop floor and on site. But it sort of talks about there being, in very, very general terms. So this is a model. It's not going to be accurate. But even if it's an inaccurate model, if we can use it for predictive purposes, then it's useful. Okay, so you've got folks who are all about doing stuff and folks who are all about thinking about stuff. And they're both kind of necessary in that the folks who are thinking about doing stuff are also thinking about the organization of the society. They're thinking about the organization of all the people that are required to make things happen. The folks who want to do stuff and just get stuff done, they don't want to think about that stuff. No. They want to do the work, and you really need both folks in order to make things work. Whether it's a shop floor, a construction site, and it occurs to me that the reason that the folks who are really into doing the work, so construction workers, cabinet makers, carpenters, whatever, cement guys, whatever, cement people, they don't become politicians because politicians are really invested in this way of things. That's how they're wired, right? And likewise, difficult for the politicians to
go the other way.
And so the trick to success in any of this is for both groups, each
balance.
group they've got to have a little bit of sympathy for the other, or a little bit of understanding. So to take some kids who are maybe destined or on the path towards working in construction, and have them do some design projects to better understand what these folks are concerned with is a really, really good thing. In the same way that is really good for these kids to experience a little bit of welding and a little bit of
I'm just trying to think
together.
of more and more opportunities for kids, whether they're immigrants or homegrown here, to just like exercise their skill and creativity. Because I honestly believe, especially when you're younger, it's like a mountain when it comes to creativity. Like the amount of ideas that I don't think you can sit down and just draw. You would take an entire lifetime to draw all the creative ideas that you have at a younger age.
Yeah.
And then it's just age and circumstances that basically start, I guess, erasing these pages of creativity over time.
It's a muscle.
It is.
Yeah, you have to flex it.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then you don't cultivate it.
But
and
if we're being stopped by certain people because it's just a political flavor, then that kind of is missed opportunity.
Yeah. I don't think that people who are in school and are looking at careers that are in many different industries are thinking about it from a creative standpoint, right? They're not going into the healthcare industry thinking, how can I be creative? Right? Like they're
but there is a percentage of them that are, because that's how we're coming up with really good ideas
Which
that
is
are
fabulous.
innovative and changing things. And I just don't think that there's a spotlight on a construction, on skill trades, because we're not being asked to.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
100%.
the lack of it.
So you're reminding me of the vast importance, the profound importance of mandatory industrial arts classes at the elementary school level.
Yes.
Where we had to...
Remember those?
Yes. So grade 7 and 8, in our case, it took up a fairly substantial amount of time. I mean, there was 2 afternoons a week, which for kids in grade 7 and 8 is a lot of time. And in that we were...
You're sweating.
Well, and we were tasked with designing our own projects.
Yeah, but you're just like, you're thinking the way you're thinking.
It was so much fun, too.
I know.
You know,
when you solved it. When you weren't solving it was frustrating. Yeah. But yeah, like it kind of opened up thought.
And it was mandatory. Yeah. Everybody had to take it. Didn't matter whether you're heading down this road or this road.
That's cool.
It's gone. Cool. We should have more of that stuff. So I keep on thinking that it's the small mom and pop, the small businesses that are actually giving these opportunities out to these kids. But the kids need to find you guys.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And I guess it's really hard to find you guys in such a noise-filled landscape like social media or even the web.
Yeah.
They don't know where to start.
Well, and I think like from my perspective of being a woman as well, like I wouldn't have really felt comfortable like even going out to interview probably. I would have, especially at that age, I would have been too intimidated, you know? And so I think I would love to be a part of an initiative to go in and speak with kids. And I know that there's a Jill of all trades that they run at Conestoga multiple times in the year, which like I've applied so many times to be a mentor because I want to so badly. But, you know, it's great. If they have too many mentors, I'm happy. But I'm just like, let me be a part of this. But, you know, it's stuff like that where it's just giving kids the opportunity to do it. Well, those are women, but young women, the opportunity to try it and get their hands dirty. Even just that little day probably makes a difference in those young women's life, helps them make decisions that if they hadn't have had that one day experience, they probably wouldn't think, oh, maybe I could be an electrician, or maybe I could be a plumber, or, oh, you know what? I'd love to run like a crane. You know, like those are things that probably young women don't have the opportunity. I really shouldn't generalize and say young women. I'm sure there's lots of like,
but not enough.
Yeah.
Not enough women and also young men are not looking at it as options as well too.
Sure.
And I just don't think because the conversation is not there.
Yeah.
I think as much as we don't say it is, I think that it's still not, it's the fallback mentality.
Well, and so you're in a position to speak with a lot of different people within the construction industry.
Yeah.
Where are they finding their new hires?
They're having a challenge. I mean, Indeed is one thing that they keep on going through where they're talking about they'll just put a post out, but they're being more direct these days. So they're just being blunt, Simple as that. Like, these are the parameters I need, and if you don't fit any of these, don't even bother contacting me, because they already know the ratio of how many people are going to inquire about it and who's actually going to show up. Right. So they have to deal with that at that point, right? But everybody is going through that. So now you're fighting all the businesses to get the smaller pool. I'm trying to figure out how to make that pool bigger. Hey, architects and builders, do you want to stand out from the competition? Fraser Wood Siding has your back. Fraser Wood Siding is a leader in pre-finished wood siding. They manufacture beautiful pre-finished wood siding using only the highest quality PEFC certified Canadian softwood. Fraser Wood Siding is available in 17 profiles and unlimited colors. Fraser Wood Siding is available in 17 profiles and unlimited colors. Supplied by the global leader in paints, Sherwin-Williams. Whether your design taste is classic, contemporary, conservative, or bold, they've got you covered. They'll gladly match the color of any paint manufacturer and send a sample on an actual piece of Fraser Wood Siding in just a few days. Visit their website at www.fraserwoodsiding.com and reach out about your upcoming projects to benefit from their industry-leading lead times. Fraser Wood Siding, get inspired.
There's a high school dual credit program. Do you know about that? No. And what is the program that Olga's doing in high school?
So we've got a young woman who is going to be starting tomorrow as a co-op placement from Beal. HB Beal is one of our local schools. Is more focused on tech than academics traditionally, although their academics have really improved over the last, since I was in high school, 4 decades. But I wasn't aware that she was. I think it's just a straight woodworking.
I thought she got I thought she could use her time with us as a credit toward a college program.
So what'll end up happening with Olga, as happens with a lot of the other co-op students we have through, is the moment they enter, I'll get them signed up with OYAP. And I'll speak with the guidance counselor as well, or with a co-op teacher, to make sure that the moment they're signed up, then the hours that they do with us can count towards their apprenticeship,
which is great,
right? But if they don't do that, if they don't sign that agreement,
so it's Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is something that exists.
There we go.
To streamline kids from high school into the trades.
Yeah.
I think the disconnect is when you see the young kids playing with their sandboxes and playing with little toys or what have you, or watching mom and dad do something around the house, DIY or whatever it is. At some point, I guess in late grade school to early high school, that conversation's taken off the table. And now you're trying to reintroduce it towards later years of high school, which the kid might not be interested in it at that point. They've been bombarded by other career options out there. And then now you're fighting the battle that everyone right here is fighting.
Yeah.
I love that idea of an introduction to something along those lines in the latter years of your grade school, like grade 7, grade 8.
That's, I think, the optimum time to do it.
For sure. And then have that opportunity in high school to, branch out and select those options, whether it's woodworking or like it was when I was in high school, woodworking, auto, tech, but like have that first little introduction. I do love seeing all the DIYers online, and when the ones where they have like their kids involved and stuff, I think that's really cool. I mean, I was lucky I grew up on a farm. I didn't really get a lot of opportunity to use tools, but we were always those kids that was like, we were helping, whether we wanted to or not, but we were helping in some capacity.
Because there was tasks.
Because there was stuff that had to be done. Yeah. We lived on a farm. There was always stuff to do.
There's always something to do.
Yeah,
so it was a different mindset. But now you're trying to get, and I'm going to guess it's probably more immigrants getting into trades than locals.
Maybe.
I don't know. We've been so hard pressed for so long that the sort of the philosophy that we embrace is one in which we don't really care where you're from or who you are or what you look like or what your preferences are. If you're interested in doing the job and show some potential, you're one of us. You're in.
We'll teach you. We'll guide you. We'll share.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's all we're asking for, right?
That's all I ever wanted. And that was when I first got introduced to Chris, was through the WIS program. We had to interview someone who worked in the industry. And I remember having this great conversation. And I could probably quote it because I had to, I listened to it and sort of wrote out the interview. And it was like, you could be purple with 4 legs or,
really don't care.
Green hair, it doesn't matter. And I was like, yes, like that's what I want, and that's the only thing I ever wanted. And I was really lucky to find a good crew where when I got out on site, it didn't matter that I was a woman. It shouldn't matter, but it didn't matter. And they treated me like I was their sister or their brother, however you want to put it. And that's like that type of camaraderie, I think, plays into the working environment as well too, but it's more inclusive, right? And it doesn't have to be anything overly politically correct. It can just be inclusive. Like, it's very much still a work site. I mean, I'm surprised I haven't sworn yet, to be honest, because I swear a lot.
You're not on the right job site. How quickly was, I guess, the gender? How quickly did it go blind? Because that's what I noticed. Like, when I've had women on my job sites, I didn't care about the gender. I cared about the skill.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, I think you quickly go blind to the fact that this person is purple.
Yeah, absolutely.
Male, female, whatever it is. Right.
I felt
it's about
like
the skill and the
quick.
conversation, the task at hand. What's going to happen today? What can you do? Okay, you want to get started? You get started. Start setting up, and you start paying attention to these little details, and you're like going, okay, this person's got the skills. Yeah. Let's let them be.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
The only instance where I've had maybe like was a little bit of an older gentleman who I was working with who was not born and raised in Canada. So I think historically and kind of culturally, for them, like, women wouldn't have done those tasks. Yeah. And it's from a kind place that they're like, oh no, don't do that. I'm like, I work out every day. I'm probably stronger than you. But like, it's, so I don't take that by any means. I'm not offended. I'm just like, no, it's good. I got it. I want to do it. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and all, I mean, so inclusivity is essential. And that said, though, every now and again you get folks who just aren't wired for the job, right?
It's not for everybody.
No, it's not for everybody, and that's okay too. I think it's good to give everybody a chance, but it becomes really obvious in just a matter of a few days or a few weeks who doesn't get it, right?
Listen, Chris, there's probably more than a few trades that if I were to go apply and start working, I'd be sent home before lunch, okay? So it's like, I know a few things about construction, but I don't know everything. So it's just like the kids getting into it, don't be too intimidated by what you see. Yeah. Because there's always an opportunity to learn what you see, right?
I don't know about you, but in my program, in the WISP program, one of the things I absolutely loved, so the teachers were always like, make your mistakes. Yeah. Make your mistakes, and that's how you learn. And that's how I learn. I try not to make mistakes, but when I do make a mistake, oh boy, do I remember it, and I needed that. I needed them to not be like this kind of amazing, perfect woodworker. I needed someone to be like, no, mistakes are normal. That's going to happen. Like, come try it out. Was that your experience?
Construction. That's the trade, right? You're supposed to problem solve and figure out.
Yeah, that's what I like about it.
That's what's amazing about it on a daily basis. So all you got to do is, I mean, I guess you guys were lucky that you found the right path early on. A lot of kids don't find that right path right away.
Early on.
Then they get discouraged, right? That's another uphill challenge.
I mean, it took me like, how old am I now? It took me 30 some years to get here.
Going into the trade and going into the industry and starting as an apprentice and then meeting like someone like Chris and then meeting other people, because that's just, you're going to meet somebody else and so on and so on. And you start getting
connected.
Exactly. Yeah. Versus a lot of people get on the wrong job site with the wrong mentor and the person's just painting a negative light about, then they leave.
I think I also felt like, as well, coming into it as a second career, when I was applying, I felt strongly that if I didn't find a place that didn't work out well for me, that was okay. And I was willing to try multiple different places until I found a place that felt good. And it wasn't going to be in any way that was like, see ya. It was going to be in a professional manner that allowed for me to maintain that bridge, because I wanted to develop. And we were talking about how small of a community London is. Like, you can end up knowing someone who knows someone who heard that you weren't great. Like, I think, it's worth it to be respectful, but at the same time, I was confident in myself enough to know that, okay, if this isn't a team that I really get along with, and it didn't have to be magic from the start, but at least respect. If it wasn't going to be there, then okay, that's all right. I can find a crew that's going to work for me. I know I can. But
magic from the start. Have you found magic in
No.
Oh boy.
There's
no, I didn't think
sprinkles
it would be.
Of magic, a little bit of glitter dust.
Yeah, I love glitter.
Although that said, there's nothing more wonderful than that moment where a crew of people finally finds their mojo and they hum as one. It's my favorite moment. You can feel it.
What are the trends going on now? Like, what are clients asking for? I don't know. What's the favorite species of wood to work with these days? I don't know. Like, what's going on?
Man, oak for us, for sure.
White or red?
White oak.
White oak?
Yeah. I mean, personally,
Or
I love the
walnut.
way it looks, though.
Yeah?
And walnut. Will walnut ever go out of style?
So one of the
That's
things,
how we keep the price up.
yeah, and one of the things I'm noticing, because part of the problem too is that the forests get cut down and these species become rarer and rarer. It was a real shock to me to discover that a lot of plywoods right now, especially the industrial grade plywoods, are being made out of basswood, or also known as linden. Basswood, I've always been partial to it because it's great for carving.
Yeah.
It seasons beautifully. It air dries and kiln dries beautifully in large chunks, so it's beautiful for turnings and carvings. But it's starting to turn up more and more as a plywood core
Why are they using...
because it's available.
We're running out of spruce, or what's going on here?
I haven't gotten that deep into it, but it's certainly going to have to do with availability. I mean, I don't know how well. If you
Birch is not, or I guess birch is even going to be rare? Or?
I think birch is quite rare now, relatively speaking, from an industrial perspective.
Yeah.
And then let's not forget all of the forest fires that have been raging for the last few years in the summers. Right? I have no idea how much forest that those fires have destroyed, but it's going to be significant enough to have an impact on the plywood manufacturing industry.
Like this year, we're going to see this?
For basswood, we're already seeing it. I've got lifts of plywood on the shop floor right now with basswood cores, so that's a big change. And then from a technical perspective, I'm sure that they've done all the testing and what have you, but this stuff hasn't been in the field for that long, so I don't really know how it's going to
You think
respond.
there's going to be a lot of movement?
I have no idea. I don't know.
You won't know until you get it on site.
Won't know until we actually try it. Yeah, which is a little bit of a concern, but there it is. Things change.
America doing the same thing? Are they? I mean, I just always assume that America and Canada is kind of the same.
There really
boat.
aren't any. There really are very few Canadian-owned mills. They're all now owned by larger American companies. So now that said, I mean, we visited Columbia, the small mill that
Columbia Products?
Yeah, in Cambridge, and they're actually harvesting from local forests, relatively local forests in northern Ontario. So that was nice to hear, and ideally, in all cases, sustainably harvesting. The white oak has certainly had its day. It's not disappeared yet, but I think we'll see a little bit less of it. Live
is it the
edge,
grain that everybody loves? Is that what it is? Or
especially certainly with rifts on, but white oak often offers certain color characteristics that have been desirable in the same way that walnut did for a long time. Cherry.
it just seems like everybody's home is just white oak nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's flooring, whether it's built-ins, whether it's kind of accent details, or
and we've been
oak.
building white oak accent pieces for almost 8 years now. So how long can that be
So
sustained?
the clients, the market's asking for it.
I mean, the elm is something that we've recently turned to, and we might be a little bit ahead of the curve there. My suspicion is that would be fairly short-lived because elm is just not a popular wood. It's not available in large quantities for industrial purposes.
Any love for hemlock?
Yeah, we're working on a large project right now where the homeowner is after a hemlock aesthetic. So we're sorting that out.
On which details are we talking about here?
Ceiling panels.
Ceiling panels.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, and I mean we're talking about 6,000 square feet of ceiling panels in this home. So
Listen, I'd rather do that than drywall. Okay?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like, as much as drywall people think that they're the best, they're not.
I hate drywall. Only because I suck
I wouldn't
at
say
it.
I just, it's missed opportunity again.
Yeah.
Like, it's so much square footage that you can do something interesting on it, right? And I guess it's also a budgetary thing as well, too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
it's relatively inexpensive.
Well, it's the labor attached to it, right? But yeah, there's so much opportunity on the ceiling to do something really unique, right? So, but that's where you guys come in. It's challenging, though, for clients to sign off on that when it costs next to nothing to put the drywall up there and throw 3 coats and sand and paint it.
Love architectural details though.
Have you ever visited Falling Water?
Oh gosh, not in decades. When I was a kid,
you've
yeah,
been.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to go there one day.
Yeah, phenomenal.
I don't think I'd be
too.
able to leave, but
No, I
have you
wouldn't
guys
leave.
been to it?
I haven't been.
I would love to see it in person. I know there's a whole tour thing, and
there is,
and it's like quite the fiasco to get in there and stuff. But
Yeah,
like a waiting list, right?
I was lucky enough to go in when there weren't barriers and stuff. You just went into the house.
Oh, I was going to say, can you even tour inside anymore?
Yeah, you can.
But it's cordoned off.
They closed it off
areas.
during the pandemic years, but
Right.
I think they reopened it. Everything is fine, but
Yeah, very moving experience.
Yeah,
I
cool.
don't doubt it, right? So
Yeah.
that's why I'm just saying there's so much opportunity where you can use wood in a home nicely, other than just debating about hardwood.
Yeah.
Like I think that's the majority of clients in residential application.
Yes.
That's the scope of their conversation skills when it comes to woodworking.
For sure.
Hardwood and cabinetry in the kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we get into heritage work as well, which is always interesting and always involves some kind of a wood element. Mostly
When you guys are
turning.
doing that kind of work, is it like, are you reverting back to photography? Like, are you looking at certain images of structures?
Depends. Sometimes you've got remnants of the elements that are still attached to the house that you can use, so you can copy them directly. Sometimes it's photographic. Yeah, absolutely. It depends on the situation. I mean, London at the moment has got 7 distinct architectural heritage zones, districts. And so if you're living in one of those districts, you've got some regulations and guidelines to follow. And they often require that you are, certainly if not restoring elements that have been already previously removed, then utilizing or restoring existing elements that have been there all the way along.
It's challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you guys are probably looking at going, we want to try to work on that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I haven't had the experience to do a lot of, like, heritage style stuff. There is, and I've been, like, flirting with this idea in the long run. There's this 2-year program at Perth's, Algonquin College's Perth campus, and it's the Heritage Restoration and Timber Framing program. And I'm, like, very, very interested in it. I'm so interested in learning more about it because it's, like, old techniques, heritage restoration, old techniques. This, I'm guessing, is like what, building windows, like hand building windows, carving, I'm guessing, like all of these like classic woodworking techniques that unless you've got someone who you're learning from, who's learned from someone, who's learned from someone, who's learned from someone.
You can't get it from a book.
And you're not going to get it on YouTube, let me tell you.
No, you
So
won't.
this is like, I see it and I'm like, oh, I'm like so interested in that.
Is there a waiting, or like how do you?
No, I mean, like right now I want to focus on getting my skills down with carpentry. And so it's kind of like long term, I'm thinking. I'd love that. And in level 3, you do timber framing. So I'll get to dip my toe in a little bit in timber framing when I go back for level 3.
Measure 10 times and then cut, right?
Yeah.
And then get the person beside you to measure it
Measure
too.
it 10 times as well. Yeah.
and don't be afraid to make a mock-up.
Yes.
I love mock-ups.
one of the I mean, attended a seminar recently on the 2025 changes to the building code. So a very ambitious new building code coming up. Probably a little bit too ambitious for the rollout they're looking at.
Really?
But it was reassuring to learn that heritage structures were exempt. Right, so you got a little bit of a pass. And so the thing I picked up from this seminar was going forward, new builds and even additions would be held to a net zero standard. Acknowledging there's going to be a transition zone in additions where you're heading into the existing house, but if it's a heritage building, then it gets a pass.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Is everyone's going to start determining their homes to be heritage?
Well, I don't know if this. I don't know. I don't know what the
Net zero is it's a marketing thing right now. Like net zero is
It's like the gluten-free of the construction world.
yeah, that's a good way to look at it. That's an ideal way of looking at it. I think that the people are deciding on this. I go back to the politicians not being contractors. Like they're the ones that are deciding this when they're not boots on the ground. So net zero is it's a catchphrase. You can just keep on throwing it out at everybody, but they don't really understand what net zero really means.
Yeah.
And to force builders to build a certain way or use certain products, this is where I start getting a problem about, because net zero is product driven. That's why I say it's a marketing ploy.
Interesting.
What kind of changes are you seeing coming up.
Probably talking about like insulation and sealing and building envelope membranes and things like
Yeah,
that.
no, and Craig's going to know an awful lot more about that than because it's not really my area of specialty. But that said, I recall distinctly discussion in the seminar about having requirements around reglazing. So if you think about skyscrapers downtown.
Right.
At some point, all of that glazing material needs to be replaced. When it does get replaced, it's going to have to be replaced to certain standards, right? Which are different from the standards that the stuff was installed with in the first place.
Like product-wise.
Product-wise, yeah, but technique-wise as well. Certainly, heat pumps are going to be right, and they're there's a thing.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. Technically speaking, if you want to start going net zero. Quickly turn digital measurements into efficiency gains for your business. With iGuide, you can turn around DWG floor plans within 48 hours, easily share project files with partners, and create 3D walkthroughs for your clients. Stop struggling with inaccurate measurements, manual processes, and inefficient project planning and collaboration. Discover how you can boost productivity and cut costs with a virtual demo. Visit goiguide.com/AEC to connect with an iGuide specialist. Anytime any trade, I guess specifically you guys want to hang a cabinet, you're going to have to seal the vapor barrier where that screw is going through.
Wow, yeah.
Who's doing that and how are you doing
And
that?
how are you
when the
gonna do that?
drywall's already up or the plywood's already up?
Yeah.
So you're piercing it. You're already making holes. So technically, if you want to go the net zero route, you have to build a double wall cavity.
Yeah, essentially what ends up happening
One
is,
wall is the insulation wall, one wall is the mechanical wall. So now you can drill through the mechanical wall and not pierce the cavity.
Or you're introducing strapping that the wall cladding gets hung onto that the cabinetry ends up getting hung to.
So, and how do you enforce, that's what I mean, it's like, how do you enforce all this stuff to make sure that it meets these standards?
And all of this stuff is still in the process of being worked out.
Yeah.
So we're awaiting the guidelines that will affect us, but we know they're coming.
It's a shame. It's entertaining, but it's a shame. I don't agree with it, right? So I've always said it's more about building the structure properly and building anything that you build in the structure properly. Yeah. So then, I mean, there's lots of projects that I've worked on that I don't have a single miter that's opened up.
Right.
Amazing.
Because I did, like if the building code was to teach you, all right, this is an interesting exercise.
Yep.
If they were to teach you how to do a miter,
Yeah.
how would it be written in their book?
Oh, in the building code, you mean?
Yeah, in the building code. Would there be any glue?
Probably not. They would say something very lawyer speak.
Yeah,
like,
totally. That's
must be done no less than.
And what's the tolerance if it does
Right.
open up,
Yeah.
and what period of time that
Yeah.
it opens up versus a good woodworker or someone that cares about that trade? It ain't gonna split.
Yeah.
Period. Because this is what I've done. I clamped it, glued it,
Yeah.
I nailed it properly. I did all kinds of stuff to it.
So I think that's one of the reasons why apprenticeship is so incredibly important, right? Because you've got this mentorship built right into the process of educating the next group of tradespeople, and so part of that is not simply if you're the mentor, your education hasn't ended; it continues on, and
Hopefully. Yeah.
it has to.
It should.
Because
it should,
everything,
absolutely.
I mean, the rules around you change, the materials
Yep.
change, right?
Yep.
I was expressing concern about basswood being used as a plywood
Right.
layer. And we'll know in time.
I mean, it's a slippery slope, Chris. Like the thing is, you start getting people who don't know construction making rules about construction. You're going to start seeing a lot of composite materials being used in traditional construction techniques, which there's no history for it.
Yeah.
So we don't know how it's going to react in a structure.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like you might as well make all your studying out of plastic offcuts or something.
And so we're back
but
to
you
this.
can't use that because you can't use petroleum. So you can't use any kind of diesel or fuel or compressor. You can't. So how are you going to build that then?
So we're back to
There's
this.
will to press it together. Like,
Back to this
I don't
whole idea of
understand.
communication, right?
it's
We were talking
challenging.
earlier about the communication between the designer and the the folks who are doing the work, between the homeowner and the folks within the organization. It'd be really nice if engineering could discuss a bit more with the folks who are in the sort of top echelons of the trade, to work things out and find those compromises. In the end, it's a compromise with some scientific observation attached.
Well, it's like they could spend the time and start inquiring about all the kids and why they got into construction, what they're learning, why they left. Like there could be a whole survey done about this, and then also get the kids' opinions about how to build future homes. Because I'm telling you, it's the younger generation that's figuring out how to build these homes better. We are kind of set in our ways. Like we go in and we're building it to meet OBC standards, right? Yeah. But we've all seen that exercise. You put a glass of water at the edge of a table. That's minimum code, right?
Yeah.
But now you're asking us to go maximum code, which means that a client can't build that. We have to use certain materials that we can't back because we've never worked with them. Yep. So it's like you're actually, it's a recipe to fail at that point. Then your house won't meet the standard.
I learned something really interesting a couple of months ago. One of our neighbors, so we're in a heritage district where I live, so I've got to deal with the heritage guidelines, which is fine. One of our neighbors is continually dealing with peeling paint. Modern
every room?
The exterior of the house. Paint's often peeling off his house.
Something's not breathing.
Well, modern building science was born, I think, in the early 1930s during a moment when people began insulating their houses. And so that moist, warm air on the inside of the house, condensation would happen in the, as it was sort of leaving and getting into the colder area, because there's no envelope. There's no real envelope. And then you've got moisture pushing at the paint on the exterior of the house as it escapes the house. And so there was a period of 2 years where painters in the United States just straight across the board, wholesale, refused to paint houses anymore because they'd gotten tired of being called back to repaint houses and being blamed for this peeling paint issue. And it was the birth of modern building technology and science, which is what is creating all of the building codes that we follow now.
But the house is actually working better without it.
What we've learned in the last decade is that houses need to breathe, and so this whole idea of sealing things to within, an inch of its life is probably not a very good idea. So we've got issues around mold and
nothing's worse than walking around or driving around Little Italy or Little Portugal in Toronto back in the 80s and 90s,
right?
Where every house brick was painted.
Yep.
And then give it a couple of decades and every brick
starts spalling.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. We were talking about our 2000 homes just the other day in class, and it was such an interesting concept that I had heard previously but didn't really understand exactly what it entailed. And that it was an idea to really try to seal up the house, right? And then it went horribly wrong.
But if you don't seal up the entire house properly and then also pay attention to the termination points where you actually have to have expelling going on,
right,
then there's no point in doing anything.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like you have to go fully and understand the whole home building envelope part of it, or you don't. The problem is that when you get a bunch of trades that are not on the same page, like you were saying, where you get into a shop and everybody's you guys are melding, that doesn't happen on every single job site. Sure. Yep. That's rare.
And again, communication across the board, right? It's because the new rules that are coming in, they are theoretical, right? And we won't know how they're going to.
They're not practical.
No, well, and we're not going to know what kind of an effect they have for another decade or 2 decades or whatever, right? And then we'll see. And so there's got to be this sort of willingness, this ability and willingness to have that discussion continually and to be continually revising our plans.
How often do you guys go in and start speaking to clients before you guys start, or do you guys inquire about how the building structure was made in this structure that you guys are applying your products to or building your woodworking in? Because that's going to affect it, no?
We've got a project on the go right now that's very unfortunate in the sense that we're there to do an addition. In the process of beginning demolition, we discovered that areas, so brick foundation, foam spray put
on
in
the
about
back of it?
Yep, about 15 years ago, up into the joists, trapped moisture. Anyway, so it's going to require a tremendous amount of remedial work before we can actually forge ahead. Yep.
So I guess basically it is like you guys have to have the conversation. You have to ask, how much of the history of this structure do you guys know?
And so it's commonplace for us, just based in this comes out of experience, to go in before beginning a job and cut some holes and open up walls and see what we're dealing with before we can really hammer out a price and a process.
You have to.
I don't see any way around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, again, I'm not really privy to a lot of those interactions at this stage in my apprenticeship, but I have been on a job, maybe finishing some stuff up, and been working with my boss. And he's like, all right, we're going to go over to this other site and we're going to do some investigating, because we're going to be moving on, hopefully with this, project, whatever it may be. And I need to see what's going on up in there or in that wall, or figure out what's happening. So I think that should be an integral part. It makes sense to me, because you can't expect the homeowners to have any sort of idea. Again, you can't expect them to know what's going on. Really can't expect them to have a good, health history of their home, even if they've been living in it for
and you can have theoretical ideas about how a structure has been built, but until you actually open it up and have a look at the structure, you have no idea. And some of the things you see, as you know, it can surprise you.
It's really funny how you can go into a home's attic or a basement that's not been covered up or not been updated with today's technology or rules and compliances or whatever, and it's doing well. You're talking about true 2x4s, true lumber, true everything. It's not spoiled. It's not mold. It's not deteriorated. It's nothing. It's not until building systems are put in place incorrectly for that dwelling that it starts to fail. Because it was working perfectly fine for the last 100 years.
Right.
What happened? What was the difference here? What changed? Well, government policy coming in and saying, now you have to add this and do this. And I'm like, well, that's going to affect long-term this existing structure. Maybe you should start looking at the structure on what's working in this structure and leave it at that. That's how I'm looking at it. It should be, right?
Yeah.
It's one of the nice things about being a cabinet maker.
I love the problem solving of it, though. And I'm like so impartial to old things. Like, my grandmother's home was built in the 1800s. Like, the house I grew up in was built in the 1920s. Like, I love these homes, but I also recognize that if I would love to own a home at some point, but if I want to own an old home, I know for sure that there's going to be a lot of stuff that I'm going to need to have to figure out in it, is my guess. Like,
in what way? To kind of maintain it energy efficient wise?
Yeah, I mean, I think to figure out what can be done without ruining what's already going on there, right? Like, maintaining what's allowed this house to stand for over 100 years and be mold free, like you said. But then there's got to be some places where there can be maybe a little bit more energy efficient that comes into it.
Oh, there's 1,000 ways of doing it, right? There's two things that I would say is just ask yourself, whatever you start working on, whatever wall you open up, did marketing or politicians have anything to do with this right now?
Is it gluten-free?
Basically. So then if it didn't have it then, why do we have to have it now? Yeah. Because if you start implementing them now, that house is going to fail. Yeah. It just will fail, which is a shame, because now it's a beautiful home, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, Toronto, they just love knocking stuff down, right?
Yeah, it sucks.
They're really famous at it, right? They just take it down and then build something new on top of it, which really sucks. But as we get closer to wrapping up, any interesting projects coming down the pipe that you guys are working on and looking forward to this year?
Nothing really.
Nothing exciting?
No. I'm excited to finish level 2 and get back to work.
No side projects or
not
nothing?
Not yet. I gotta get my tool grant. I gotta get some more tools in my roster, which
That's
sounds
easy.
So ridiculous.
Why?
I don't know.
What kind of tools are you missing? Which one would you like?
I don't have any finishing tools. So I mean, very minimal finishing tools. So I don't have brad nailer. I don't have a compressor or anything like that. So right now I work with my coworker, who's lovely, and she's got a lot of the stuff, so then I can be like, hey, do you need a hand? Or, hey, do you need that this weekend? Can I borrow that from you? I'll buy you beer and pizza.
That's how it works.
Yeah, I love it.
And then eventually it's they forget that you even have it. Then they're like, oh, I must have lost it somewhere.
Oh, I don't think that works so well with women.
No, every man knows it too as well. They know exactly where it is. It was never lost. Okay, all right. It was just never given back.
Just being nice.
That's all it was. Yeah. But you guys, anything coming down the pipe other than the ceiling there?
Just a baby.
Yeah, you've certainly a big project.
That's a big one.
It's not just a baby.
Yeah.
And for us, we're working through a big rebranding. It's been an awful lot of fun. So for the last year, we have been planning a new name, a new presentation to the public. I've really enjoyed being part of that process because it forces you to think through a lot of things. It's what's got me, what had me earlier talking about the importance of having everybody on the same page, right? Everybody's playing from the same script. And this will be... The nice thing about the team that we're working on right now is we've all been at this for a while, so this is not our first rodeo. And so there's this opportunity to maybe get it right. So that's what we're working towards, and that's
Chris,
probably
you never
the
get it
biggest
right,
thing.
man. You'll
The
keep on
thing.
adjusting.
Absolutely,
Right.
but it's kind of fun to work with a group of equally experienced people.
For sure.
I have to
Problem
say.
solvers. Are you guys always looking for hires, or like you actively?
Absolutely.
Always looking, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Someone's interested in coming on board, student.
Yeah, no, I love talking to people, love bringing them through and providing shop tours. I mean, we're sort of, we seem to continually be a couple of carpenters short, and so adding to the team is always a very exciting prospect. And likewise, investment in technology. So we've got a phenomenal new edge bander coming next week.
What country are you talking about here?
Well, we're picking something up from Holzer. It's a Holzer edge bander. It'll be the 5th Holzer that I've had experience with.
Where are they from?
It's German.
That's what I thought. That's
Yeah,
why I said, what
yeah.
country were we talking about?
Yeah.
'Cause it ain't Canadian.
Yeah.
Or
So,
American.
and the important decisions there had to do with the service record of the company providing it, and their proximity to the shop. So they're this side of Toronto, close to London. The machine's got a good history. I'm excited. It'll be my first CNC operated edge bander, so we can actually see these graphics of the adjustments we're making rather than going underneath the hood and adjusting dials. People will be able to make the adjustments on the screen, and it's going to put us in a position where we can effectively be working with a lot of the more modern materials that require some very specific tooling.
Looking for cutting-edge solutions for your spray foam needs? Look no further than Elasticam Specialty Chemicals. With a remarkable track record spanning over 3 decades, Elasticam stands as an industry-leading supplying contractors across Canada with top-grade closed-cell, open-cell, and specialty foam products and accessories. Experience hassle-free spraying in both summer and winter with Insulthane Extreme, Canada's groundbreaking HFO closed-cell product. Time is precious, and we know it. Optimize your efficiency and avoid downtime by choosing the best products with the best technical and customer support. Elevate your spray foam game today with Insulthane Spray Foam products by Elasticam. Give them a try today. Visit their website at www.elasticam.com or give them a call at 1-877-787-2436. The veneer's getting thinner?
Absolutely. Yep. And as
More glue than veneer?
Well, and as we get into more modern materials,
Matte finishes.
yeah,
Hot matte finishes, high gloss finishes, different textured melamines. Melamines that look like wood.
Yeah.
Hard to edge band. With
You
an
know,
old, with an old
I'm
edge
staying
bander.
quiet because I haven't heard anything I like so far, right? It's just, yeah, I know. I get it, but that's what the market
There's a demand.
For.
There's a bit.
Yeah.
There's a demand.
Yeah, I know.
and one of the things to consider too, especially with residential millwork, it's not that we don't build things to last anymore. It's that in all likelihood,
Clients don't want it to last.
the house is going to be, somebody's going to move out of their house
man.
20 years down the road, and there's going to be a new kitchen put in, or even 10 years, or in some cases even 5 years. We build things to last, but because the forests are becoming so stressed, it is a really good thing to use some of these more modern materials because it does offer a little bit of a reprieve to the natural.
I guess there's freedom to just remove faces, keep carcasses. Would we do this?
Sure, and it depends on the build. I mean, we're a custom shop, so we build things in a variety of different ways. But if it's a sort of a standard cabinet build, you're going to have melamine boxes with what you might call dressing applied. The dressing can always be changed, yeah.
I find a lot of the cabinetry these days is like a lot of gimmicks. Like all these little gimmicky things that, man, I'm going back to people who are designing these little gimmick things are not cooks, they're not chefs, they're not homeowners. They're just like, this is really, really cool. You could put 1,000 spices here. I'm like, I don't have 1,000 spices.
Well, it's why it's so important.
Go-to ones.
So
right?
important. It's crucial, absolutely crucial to understand how someone is going to use that space.
Cook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Not everybody cooks.
Yeah.
And those who do really need a special space.
Put a phone in a drawer that calls Uber right away.
Yeah, well, and so beyond kitchens, in terms of special projects on the shop floor right now, we've got a baptismal font. We recently, when's the last time somebody made a brand new baptismal font for church? right?
No. Well, in Europe, probably every week.
Okay. Fair.
In Canada, I don't
but
know.
in Canada, no.
Yeah.
We recently finished making an ark for a local synagogue, which was kind of fun. That was a great project.
Wow.
Yeah. We've got a number of very thick, solid white oak dining room tables that we're doing with hand-shaped edges, and some very fine handmade joinery going into doors, glass panel doors, but all handmade on the shop floor. So these are really fun projects, and they offset what ends up happening, sort of the factory side of things, where there's a bit more throughput and a little bit more white melamine, right?
Here's a question to ask all three of you guys. I haven't solved this one yet. I'm just curious. I haven't seen it yet either. I've been scouring. I don't think anybody's created it. How would you transition a island going from solid wood to solid stone without just a joint? How would you naturally blend the two materials together? My first thought is like you kind of create a stagger of some sort of, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But how would you do it so then it looks seamless, that you're going, let's say for argument's sake, black walnut to some sort of white marble, and you want to transition from the wood area, which is a prep area, to the serving area, which is a stone area.
So are we thinking in terms of geometric shifts? Are we thinking about a line shift?
First was geometric, that I was thinking, would it work? And then I started thinking I would get tired of that shape. Then I started thinking naturally, would you go and somehow try to figure out the grain of the wood lining up with the grain of the stone?
That'd be cool.
Which was just like the dollar signs were just.
Yep.
Well, yeah.
I was going to suggest, actually, it depends on the wood and what grain you're thinking would transition into the stone. But I'm sure it's going to look dated, but I actually really like the look of the epoxy with wood. And I wonder if you could do something that allowed for like a really neat transition between. And then I've actually seen stuff where then they like add lights behind it, which again, probably is going to look hokey in like 10 years, but could be kind of neat to have something that allows it to transition from the wood into the epoxy and then into the stone.
Or what about if you introduce wood dust and stone dust to create a kind
go.
of fluid
The overlap
transition
from the
between
stone to the wood, the
Yeah.
wood from the stone.
Yeah.
I think a natural organic merging of the two materials would look absolutely amazing. I haven't seen it yet, but I don't know if someone's tackled it or tried it, because I always thought that was a really nice way to put two types of material together and felt organic. Something, thought.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's cool.
There's lots of ideas. I just don't know how to do them.
You're flexing that creative muscle.
Yeah, that's right. I'm super excited about our new showroom kitchen, which is still in the design phase, but it's looking at mirroring a variety of different materials, cast metals. We'll get into concrete stone, but also playing off of curves with a variety of different metal laminates. It's going to be a real fun technical challenge to pull this
When's
thing off.
that going to be ready?
It's in the design stage now. I'm hoping that we can begin production in about 2 weeks, and then we're probably going to need 2 full months to get this thing done and in, which puts us up towards but it's all in house, and so installation shouldn't be too big a challenge. Once again, in our organization, typically the person who's making the thing, if it's a custom thing, will end up being the one installing it as well. So,
are you going to IBS, Kitchen or KBS?
Probably not. It's very possible that somebody from our design staff
next
is.
week, right? You guys haven't been, huh?
Yeah, it's been years since I've been.
Well, it's 4 years since the last time I was there, but
Yep.
I've been there too many times, right? I want to go over to Germany and look at what's going on there.
Nice.
We used to go a lot, and I'll bring it up at our meeting on Friday, but I think we're probably overdue for a visit.
I got to do the 12 questions, guys.
Right.
Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure meeting you and talking shop.
Wonderful.
And Chris McKaskell here, Director of Craft. Heather, sorry, what was your last name, Heather?
Cummings.
Cummings. And then Sarah Blackler.
Blackler.
Sorry. Millennium Construction, Design and Ink. And then Covenant Construction. And then also you can find Chris McKaskell on IG. You can find Covenant on IG. You could probably find Millennium on their IG as well, too.
Yeah.
You guys ready for these?
Yeah.
I don't think we did this when you were on the show. Maybe I don't think we did.
It was really fast, though.
It was really fast.
I mean, the episode I was on,
changed.
there was a significant amount of swearing and a whole lot of back and
That's
forth.
because Carlito was
It was
there.
a ton of fun. It was a ton of fun.
I don't know where Carlito is right now. He's MIA. What is your favorite construction word, guys?
Construction word?
Word.
Fasten.
It could be carpentry.
Fasten.
Word. Huh?
Fasten.
Smove damper.
Smove damper.
Yeah.
What's a smove damper?
It's a probably a very it's got to do with making pocket doors in cabinetry, and it's simply this sort of material that runs along the side to close the gap up. Very important part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Particularly with Salice door systems. Smove damper.
How do you spell it?
Smove. I would like to meet Mr. Smove someday.
He's on a beach right now.
Yeah.
Transom, which is such a silly thing, but I don't know why. I'm like, love that word.
I love transoms.
I know, and I
I
love the
miss
word.
transoms in interior doors.
I know.
That's how you snuck
They're
in to
so
take a look at the
nice.
room that had all the Christmas gifts in.
Absolutely.
There was no other way because you couldn't see underneath the door.
You can't see underneath it.
So you had to climb and make a
Yep.
really precarious ladder
There you
out of
go.
boxes. What is your least favorite tool?
Oscillator.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so annoying. I hate it. It works great. I hate it.
Some are quieter than others.
My least favorite tool.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Okay.
You can,
I hate shapers.
Shapers?
Hate shapers. Well, I'll still use one when it's necessary, but if I can avoid using a shaper, I will.
Nothing?
Gotta be
can't
something
think
I
of
don't
that.
like.
but why?
You like every tool.
I like them all.
Aw,
If you don't have a least favorite, that's okay.
All right.
that's
Moving
nice.
on.
What construction sound do you guys love? But it could be carpentry sound that you guys love.
Let me think about that for a second.
I love the sound of a tamper.
Tamper? A jumping
Wow.
jack.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't think of that. Okay.
Love the sound of a tamper.
Okay. I do. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm partial to the sound of a saw, of course.
Any saw? Table or miter?
I like a miter saw.
Miter saw?
Yeah.
Maybe a router.
Ooh.
Even a CNC router would be fine.
A high-pitched sound.
But it's varying.
Use those often, do you, Chris?
Do you have one? Do you own one?
No, but I love using them.
Really?
What is your favorite beverage?
I'm going to go full tradie. It's a Monster. Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate. I'm really trying not to, but it's really hard.
White wine.
Okay. And I mean, my thing is a Hendrix Martini straight up with a twist.
There you go.
What's the worst and best part of this industry?
I mean, best part for me is like the satisfaction I get from building stuff, for sure. Yeah. Worst part is, I can't say working outside because I actually love working outside, but I don't love being cold and wet. I actually don't mind being cold. Just like being cold and wet.
I know. Cold, wet.
Sucks.
You get, especially at the start of the day.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I have like an entire wardrobe in my car.
Still leaves
Yeah.
you're cold all day.
I think maybe the best part would be happy coworkers. And worst part would maybe be repetitious work.
Sanding.
I had referenced that magical moment when a crew finally finds its groove.
Yeah.
That's definitely my favorite thing, working with other people. Within the trade, I love making things. I love being part of the process of making things. If there's one thing that I really dislike, it is working with people who are closed-minded, who want to see a solution in one way and one way only.
Politicians.
Sure. Sure. There's never, yeah.
Favorite
or
curse word?
trainees.
Sorry?
Or trainees. That only see things one way and they can't. They're going to do it their way no matter what. Anyway.
Sure.
Because
Sure,
they
sure.
learned it online. Like, this is the best
Yeah,
way to do it.
probably.
There's always more ways to do it in construction. Oh, and there's always new ways to learn.
Yeah.
To do it in
Yeah,
construction.
absolutely.
Favorite curse word?
Can I just say that?
Yeah.
Oh, cunt. For sure. Sorry.
Don't worry. We have plenty of Irish on the show.
It's my favorite word. I love saying it.
Favorite curse word? Probably fuck.
Yeah, and it was same as it was last time I was on, and I offended some people I know because I heard from them, but it's still holy fuck.
You heard, and you actually replied?
I communicate with people, absolutely.
I don't reply to that stuff. I leave it alone. Favorite vehicle in the entire world?
Oh my God, in the entire world.
Vehicle, any type of mode of transportation. Anything at all.
I like my car.
Victory V92.
Black?
Blue.
Blue? Dark blue or light blue?
Dark blue.
It's a nice bike.
Yeah.
I like my little Hyundai Veloster.
Oh, they're so cute.
Oh, okay.
It's a Velocity hamster.
My Veloci hamster that
I
fits
always
all of my
pronounce it
install
as
stuff in it.
like
all of
a
it.
Velociraptor.
Oh.
No, Heather drives this incredible vehicle that is tiny, and somehow she managed to fit everything into it.
It's like Hermione's purse in Harry Potter.
No
It's like
roof rack?
never ending. No roof rack.
No?
No need for one. It just packs
It just
the cheeks.
all fits.
It just really,
Yeah.
It's a hatchback, right?
Yeah.
I have a Prius, and it's the same thing. I can fit 8-foot pieces of lumber in there. It's fabulous.
Until the brakes have to be applied harshly.
No, so you just put some padding around there. It's fine. Remember, I told you I have a whole wardrobe in the back of my car.
So you just pack it so they won't damage everything.
Yeah.
You see like this square notch right in the dash.
All right, the practical and the dream. I really enjoy driving my F-150. But what I would love to have is a 1973 to 76 Porsche 911 Targa.
We going funky German color? Or are we going?
Oh, I don't even care
traditional
about
gray or
the
black?
color. But
No?
no, you know what?
Targa's nice with the whale tail.
Fair enough. Yeah, and I think I would have it like bright candy red.
Ooh.
Right?
Why not?
Yep.
What do you guys miss from your childhood?
Being on a farm.
I was going to say something similar. Living in the country.
Yeah.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Sorry. I got dragged around to a lot of art galleries when I was a kid. I kind of missed that. Yeah, we saw a lot of architecture, a lot of art galleries, which is all an experience that sort of, it acts as a filter for me today. Way of sort of setting up the way I view work in the world.
I like that. What profession other than your own would you guys like to attempt one day?
I'm going to think on that for a second.
Carpentry.
I love structural engineering.
Structural engineering.
Honestly, if I could sit all day, which I can't, I cannot sit. I'm not a person who can sit. I got to do something. I feel like it'd be really cool to be like a large machine operator or like a crane operator or something. Like, anytime I've driven.
You're talking to yourself.
I know. I do that already though.
All day long.
Or I could listen to podcasts.
Yeah, you could. But you still got to pay attention to what's going on down there, right?
Yeah, true, I guess. Well, see, that's out then.
What profession would you guys not like to do?
Work in the service industry because I've done it. Well, not food service industry, but retail. No, thank you.
Anything where I'm sitting.
Yeah. I love my accountant. I could never do what he does.
No. Last question. If heaven exists, what would you guys like to hear God say when you arrive at those pearly gates?
All your childhood pets are waiting for you.
Rolling down the hill.
Yeah.
That's a weird question. You've done what you were supposed to do or something like that?
Do you prefer shaken or stirred?
Ooh.
Guys, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank
making
you.
the trek. I really appreciate having you guys.
great.
And come back anytime. I know it's a little bit of a trek, but I'll get to you guys this summer and check it out. Right?
That'd be marvelous. Thank you
I'll
very
do a
much,
little
Manny.
tour there, and I'll put on the PPE and just, what?
We would love to have you. This has been a real pleasure. Thank you very much for having me back on. And
always welcome.
How nice it is to bring a couple of new folks out.
Fantastic experience. Thanks so much for having
Thank
me.
you. Oh, thanks so much. That's it. We're all done.
Awesome.
We're out of here. Thanks,
you.
guys. All right, Angela, we're